welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into some pretty intense source material.
We certainly are. It's this document that claims, well, it lays out what it calls a complete blueprint for the, calculated implosion of the United States.
Right, the Fourth Reich and Rapture reset. That's the title we're working with for this deep dive.
Exactly. And our mission today really is to synthesize these sources. They allege there's this deliberate, orchestrated parallel being drawn between Nazi Germany back then.
The Third Reich.
Yeah, the Third Reich and current events happening right now in the U.S. and Europe, too.
And the argument is that history is being rerun, like a template.
Pretty much. That's the core claim we need to explore. A parallel historical blueprint, they call it.
Okay. And this blueprint is supposed to lead to a new global power structure, the Fourth Reich. Before we get deeper, what is this Fourth Reich, according to the source?
Well, the source argues it's fundamentally different. It's technological, it's economic, not primarily military like the last one. The core idea is that this Fourth Reich is defined by the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Think technocrats, AI, biometrics, total data control.
All right.
But, and this is key, they claim this massive shift needs a trigger, a huge catastrophic event.
And that's the Rapture reset.
That's what the source identifies it as, yes.
Yeah.
The necessary catalyst for this whole transition.
All right. Let's start where the source does, with the historical groundwork. It jumps straight into economic parallels. The 1929 crash versus the 2008 crash.
Exactly. They use those as sort of bookends or maybe benchmarks for societal decline.
Benchmarks, okay.
Yeah, they map out the symptoms. Pre-Hitler Germany, after World War I, you had hyperinflation, massive unemployment, just this deep despair.
Right.
And the source draws a direct line to the U.S. now. Unsustainable debt, both national and personal, political gridlock, what they call widespread societal decay.
Making the country vulnerable.
Precisely. Ripe for a planned disintegration. They argue the U.S. is teetering right on that edge, that pre-tyranny breakdown point.
Which then connects to probably the most startling historical claim in this document. The idea that the Nazis didn't actually lose the war.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it. Not lost in the conventional sense, but rather transferred their operations.
Transferred how?
The source makes this frankly stunning assertion that the core Nazi operational structure, their intelligence, their science, it was absorbed into the American system.
You mean like Operation Paperclip?
Exactly that. They point directly to Paperclip.
Yep.
Integrating Nazi scientists, intelligence ocs, into agencies like the CIA, the NSA, even the FBI.
Wow.
Allowing them, the source claims, to continue their black operations, but under new cover, through entities like DARPA.
So in this view, the U.S. after World War II, it wasn't the victor establishing a new order. It was more like a host, a temporary vehicle.
That's precisely the analogy the source uses. The phoenix, propped up after the war, given its time in the sun.
But with an expiration date.
According to the source, yes.
Well,
this American phoenix has reached its lifespan. It needs to be sacrificed, needs to disintegrate.
Through chaos?
Through engineered chaos, yes. To clear the path for what they call the new Masonic global empire. The U.S. isn't the end goal here. It's the necessary sacrificial collapse.
And this sacrifice, this planned chaos, the source ties it back to Albert Pike, the Masonic figure.
It does. It references a supposed letter from Pike that laid out the whole methodology, specifically needing a World War III.
And the specific conflict cited is
Israel and Zionism versus the Muslim world. The source views this specific clash as the final necessary catalyst, the ultimate order out of chaos play.
to create so much global despair that people just accept whatever comes next.
That's the logic presented, that the world will be so broken it'll gladly embrace a centralized, unifying authority, paving the way for this Luciferian new phoenix, the Fourth Reich, and its associated new religion. Okay, so if that's the big picture, the geopolitical stage setting, the next layer in the source material is the micro-level stuff, the specific steps, the anatomy of tyranny, they call it.
Right, how power was consolidated in Germany and how the source claims it's being mirrored step by step in the USA today.
It starts with the simple things, doesn't it? Slogans, populism.
Yeah, the source points out Hitler's slogans. Germany first, make Germany great again. Sound familiar?
Eerily so. And the source draws direct parallels to modern U.S. political slogans, hope and change, build back better, make America great again, arguing they all serve the same function.
Which is?
To harness populist anger, get people focused on that, while the deeper agenda moves forward underneath.
And that anger needs a focal point, a trigger event.
The false flag catalyst, The source puts huge emphasis on this. For Hitler, it was the Reichstag fire.
The parliament building burning down.
Exactly. Which was immediately used to justify eroding civil liberties, concentrating power. Hitler became Führer, got exclusive executive authority. Bang.
And the claim is that the current system is just waiting for a similar event, a modern Reichstag fire.
That's the argument. Something catastrophic enough to justify the immediate suspension of the Constitution of basic rights.
And following that catalyst in Germany, the source details the next steps, the erosion of rights.
Yeah, systematically. Gun registration, then confiscation, targeting specific groups.
Labeling them enemies of the state.
That exact phrase is used. And then setting up the Gestapo as this entity operating completely above the German Constitution, the highest law in practice.
And the source mentioned something else that came before the Gestapo, a kind of groundwork, moral decay as a strategy.
Yes, they do. It's a controversial claim, but the source asserts that the German Christian soul, as they put it, was deliberately weakened.
How so?
By introducing and normalizing things like feminism, abortion, homosexuality, drugs. The source argues this softened society up, paving the way for later acceptance of eugenics and, well, the concentration camps.
Okay, bringing that historical mirror to now. The source calls the current U.S. situation Battlefield USA. What does that mean exactly?
It means, according to this document, that the government apparatus itself has shifted its view. It now sees its own citizens as the potential enemy, the primary threat.
A fundamental shift.
It is. And the implosion scenario they detail is, it's pretty chilling. They talk about future false flag attacks, maybe another 9/11 style event, maybe nuclear, maybe biological.
And the purpose.
To justify the immediate roundup and internment of millions of U.S. citizens, specifically those who oppose this envisioned New World Order.
And they explicitly compare this to
The internment of Japanese Americans during World War II, suggesting the infrastructure, like FEMA camps, is already prepared and waiting to be activated for exactly this purpose.
Okay, so if the historical playbook is the why and the how, where does the source claim the actual tools, the infrastructure for control, already exist?
Yeah.
This gets us into the legislative framework.
Right, the dissection of tyranny, as they call it. This section argues that a whole raft of laws are already on the books, just waiting for that declaration of a national emergency.
And the cornerstone they point to is the Patriot Act.
Yes. According to the source, the Patriot Act wasn't just a reaction to 9/11, it was orchestrated using 9/11 as the catalyst.
Modern Reichstag fire again.
That's the parallel they draw, allowing for sweeping powers that fundamentally change the legal landscape.
And the key power, allegedly, is what? Indefinite detention?
That's the core of it, yes. Allowing citizens to be labeled enemy combatants or domestic terrorists.
And held indefinitely, without access to a judge or jury.
Exactly. Bypassing fundamental constitutional protections. Habeas corpus, due process, gone under that designation.
Wow. And this legal structure is supposedly reinforced by changes in government agencies. You mentioned FEMA earlier.
Right. FEMA.
Yeah.
Created back in '77 for natural disasters, right? But post 9/11, it got folded into Homeland Security, DHS.
Okay.
And the source argues its real role shifted, not protecting citizens during a disaster, but protecting the homeland from supposedly dangerous citizens, ensuring continuity of government, regardless of what happens domestically.
So it's an institutional shift in purpose.
That's the claim. And the source argues this combined FEMANSA apparatus is positioned to become the highest law of the land in a crisis, just like the Gestapo.
With the military involved in enforcement.
Yes, authorized, they claim, to operate the internment camps. And they don't just make these claims vaguely. The source gets very specific, citing actual legislative acts and executive orders.
Okay, let's get into those. What are the key ones they highlight?
Well, they group them around sort of two main power shifts. First, the ability to detain people outside the normal legal system. Second, the ability to use the U.S. military inside the U.S. for domestic control.
Right, that second one seems critical. Using the military against citizens. What acts do they cite there?
The big one they always bring up is REX 84, Readiness Exercise 1984.
Okay, what does that supposedly allow?
According to the source, it allows the U.S. military to detain U.S. citizens in designated detention centers during periods of civil unrest, mass detentions.
And they specify who might be targeted.
They do. The source claims the categories of potential domestic terrorists under these plans include groups like Christians, returning military veterans, gun owners, pro-lifers. It's presented as very broad.
And REX 84 isn't alone. There are other acts backing this up.
The source points to several. H.R. 5122, from 2006, for instance. They claim this act allows the nullification of the Posse Comitatus Act.
That's the really old law preventing the military from acting as domestic police, right?
Exactly. Nullifying that, the source says, allows U.S. troops to be stationed anywhere domestically for any purpose, policing included.
And then there are executive orders, too.
Yes, they cite Presidential Order 51 from 2007. The claim is this allows the president, during a declared national emergency, to basically take over all government functions, consolidating power, overriding existing laws.
A sort of dictator switch.
That's how it's framed. And then you add H.R. 645, the National Emergency Centers Establishment Act.
Which does what?
Allegedly authorizes the use of U.S. military facilities as internment camps for citizens rounded up under these emergency powers.
So putting it all together, the source is arguing the entire legal and physical infrastructure for a police state is already built, just waiting for someone to flip the switch.
That is precisely the argument laid out in this document, waiting for the false flag trigger.
Okay, but this whole political collapse, the legislative takeover, it's not the end goal, is it? According to the source, it's just a transition.
Exactly. It's the chaotic bridge to the real goal, which they say is technological. That's the true meaning of the Fourth Reich.
The Fourth Industrial Revolution.
They're presented as one and the same thing. The Fourth Reich is the Fourth Industrial Revolution. It's all about technocrats, artificial intelligence, biometrics, genetic technologies like mRNA.
The ultimate control grid.
That's the term they use. And this grid, they argue, needs the chaos of the U.S. implosion to be implemented globally without effective resistance.
And this tech grid has a financial component too, doesn't it? The reset part of the title.
Absolutely. It's intrinsically linked. The source claims specific deals were made, mentioning things like the Genius Act and Project Stargate with these technocrats to set up the financial infrastructure for the New World Order.
Meaning a shift away from current money.
A total shift. A mandatory transition to a new, fully digital currency system, centralized, programmable money.
And after the Rapture reset, this digital system becomes the tool for what the source calls the mark of the beast.
That's the explicit connection made, yes. Within this new global system, this Luciferian beast empire, as they term it.
And the control mechanism is described as being very specific.
Incredibly specific. The source alleges that post-chaos, people will be required to be biometrically tattooed with a number, either on the arm or the forehead.
Linked to the digital currency.
Directly. This number, this mark linked to your digital wallet, will dictate whether you can buy or sell anything.
And if you refuse.
Refusal, or any opposition, leads to being labeled an enemy of the state, with consequences up to and including, the source claims, execution.
Chilling. And the Rapture reset also creates a religious vacuum.
That's part of the plan, according to the source. The chaos clears the way for a new religious order. They mention the formation of the 10-Toe Confederation, referencing the Book of Daniel's end times prophecies.
The politics, the tech, the religion, the source points to a final, darker agenda. Eugenicist philosophy.
Yeah, they're very direct about this. They attribute a core eugenicist belief system to these Luciferians or globalists.
Citing specific examples.
They do. They quote Prince Philip's infamous alleged desire to be reincarnated as a deadly virus to deal with overpopulation, calling humans parasites.
Oh, wow.
They also point to the Georgia Guidestones as a public declaration of this depopulation agenda aiming for a global population under 500 million.
And they link this to modern figures.
Oh, yes. Figures like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett are mentioned as proponents of population control, allegedly using things like forced vaccination campaigns.
Which they claim the COVID situation was really about.
That's the assertion in the source material, yes. A plandemic designed to further the depopulation and control agenda via mandatory medical interventions. So, to kind of wrap up this incredibly dense blueprint, the source basically concludes that the USA is playing the role of the Church of Laodicea from the Bible.
What do you mean?
Lukewarm, spiritually compromised, morally decayed, basically terminal. And these Luciferian globalists, as the source calls them, are just waiting for the right moment.
The Rapture reset.
Exactly. Waiting for that event to provide the necessary chaos and moral vacuum to finally pull the plug on the nation and activate all this pre-planned infrastructure, the laws, the camps, the tech grid.
It's certainly a meticulous and, frankly, deeply disturbing blueprint that the source lays out.
It is. The emphasis throughout is on how unsustainable debt, moral collapse, and societal division make a nation incredibly vulnerable to this kind of orchestrated takeover.
Ripe for a new world order, as they put it.
So as you process all this information,
What stands out more to you? Is it the historical parallels? They draw that direct line from the Reichstag fire to the Patriot Act? Or is it the sheer volume of specific laws and executive orders the source claims are already sitting there, ready to go? That's definitely something to think about as you look at world events today.